Welcome to Charting Change in Legal. I'm Ari Kaplan, an analyst who covers the legal industry, and I'm here with my co-host.
Caroline Hill. Hi, everyone. I am editor-in-chief of Legal IT Insider. It's great to be here with you, Ari, as usual. How are you?
I'm well and looking forward to this conversation. Been a busy few weeks since we last spoke about ILTACON, and exciting that we are kind of, in the momentum-driven period toward the end of the year. As strange as that sounds, it's kind of exciting. It's been a fast one, it seems.
It's gone crazily fast. I keep teasing that we're going to hear Mariah Carey any minute now.
Well, when did that start? I would just remember in the summer seeing back to school things, and then you're right. I guess the holidays will be here. The holidays, there are lots of holidays over the next few months, but the holidays will be here.
It's
And
Easy, busy season though, right? This is the season when everybody, so you have, I mean, the summer wasn't sleepy. I found the summer to be super busy, and obviously we had Ilticon, which you and I have talked about, and still, I feel like there's so much going on there that there's still reflections from that sort of have simmered around my head in terms of conversations that I've had with people, and I think they'll be reflecting on those in the next couple of months. I think it's one of those great times when you can take away some of that learning and discovery and then start putting it into practice is not maybe as easy as that, but and then it's this it was not a quiet period, but this really feels like it's ramped up, the number of conferences and the number of, just trying to get hold of people. People are just busy.
well, I'm going to go with topic number one for today. And I think that one of the interesting observations that I have made over the last few weeks, I've been lucky to be completing some research. So I'm regularly interviewing someone for something. And the interesting observation I will say is that I ask about costs and budgeting and purchasing and piloting. And I'm not sure at this time last year as many people were focused on including in their budget various emerging tools or budgets for implementation, or maybe individuals who will either add to their role or have someone new. And as we approach the end of the year, there's a lot more of that, it seems, happening in the fall of 2025 than there was in the fall of 2024, when people were still uncertain, waiting, when the technology landscape was crowded, but not as crowded. So there weren't as many conversations. And I'm just thinking that there's a lot of activity happening now in preparation for announcements, my sense is, that will be made, let's say, at Legal Week or at some of the other events that will take place in the first and second quarter of 2026.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And actually, it took me a while to Ilfcon sort of back in, it feels like ages ago now, but I
It's almost a month.
can't believe it. I
Yeah.
spoke to Tony McKenna, who at the time was president, and we reflected back on.
Number one in the Tony McKenna fan club right here. I'm a wonderful, wonderful individual, great leader. I can't say enough nice things about Tony. So go on, but I had to say that because I just think so highly of him.
That's so great to
Yeah,
hear.
yeah.
But he was fabulous, and we reflected on some of the changes of the conversations of the G100, 200, which I wrote after. It took me a while, to be fair. But so wrote after the conference, and he was saying that, there was tangible difference in the conversation in terms of he didn't want to overblow it and make out like everybody was way down the adoption curve, but actually the conversation had substantially changed this year to last year, and very much in terms of, real investment, and not kind of waiting, and not if but when, which was really interesting because we don't get to go to those conferences, sorry, those sessions, the G100, 200. He said the 200 was particularly useful, like real exchange of information, which I absolutely love about our industry. But yeah, he said there's that tangible difference. So I think you're right. I think we're going to see some sort of announcements in the next few months.
Well, also, I wonder if there's an element of that where as you have more people and you're more inclusive, you're getting a sense of a differing ability level of organizations. Very large organizations can take a chance on certain technologies, and others really have to be more methodical. However, anyone who takes a chance has to be very thorough in their due diligence and making sure it integrates, making sure that the security levels are appropriate, because that's clearly the biggest issue here. There's concern, yes, there's concern about the tools not working, the tools being inaccurate, but in the end, there's concern about data loss and privilege loss. And there are just so many fundamental aspects of leveraging technology in legal, especially, that are of concern that you really need to manage those far in advance before taking the next step. And that's a conversation that's come up. I will say that I had my legal tech mafia breakfast this week, and one of I never really know what we're going to talk about. People always ask me for an agenda, and I start laughing. And I'm hoping people show up and that they get a time to introduce themselves, and we'll see where we go from there. But because of that, the conversation very naturally tends to progress. And this week, it really was about ROI and how you show a very real return and some metrics. This is actually a great second topic, but how do you show the value? Because people were concerned about users. Let's say users was a metric, and they were like, I don't know what that means. Or time in a tool. People said, I don't know what time in a tool is. Does that equate to some sort of return, or is that just fueling more enthusiasm and discussion? And it was a great conversation. I don't have an opinion here, but there were lots of builders there, buyers there on both sides of the corporate spectrum, law firms and law departments. And it just, lots of people were very animated about that. It wasn't, what does the tool do? How does it work? How do I get people to use it? It was like, how do I show that it was meaningful for us to invest the time and effort and money to bring it here? And we had a very honest conversation about it. It wasn't combative at all. It wasn't as if someone said, we do this and we do this. Everyone was trying to get to a point of a fundamental metric that made the most sense for their organization.
Yeah, I mean ROI. It's not been from the beginning, right? Like it's been an ongoing conversation, not always not combative either, right? Because at the very beginning, people were saying, look, we need to invest, and then the ROI conversation early doors was really difficult because it was nothing, it was no kind of proof of concept in many cases. And also, it's like, are you talking about ROI in the sense of the practice of law or the business of law? What sort of technology? Sometimes with business of law, it's easier to show that ROI. If you're talking about, for example, a Gen AI tool, and you might say if it's something like OCG compliance, and you can prove that by complying with those CG rules better that you save or you claw back 6% of revenue. Those kind of arguments actually it's in different places. It's been easier to have those conversations, hasn't it? Like than some areas of practice of law. But actually, interestingly, recently, I've been seeing there's been surveys out that focus on ROI in terms of time back for people, which I have different views on that because there was one survey that if you actually really dug deep into the findings, it showed quite low adoption in, mainstream adoption of Gen AI tools. Um, but then it was like, then it said, oh, and all these people found that they got loads of time back from using the tools that they weren't necessarily using. So I was like, okay, but then I'm doing a talk next week at a company with a company called Stridon and a UK law firm, Wedlake Bell. And actually, so Stridon help roll out Gen AI tools. They work with, and they do specifically around Copilot. And they have got some really fascinating first-hand stats around people getting time back. And they focus on very much like the quality of life. And, perhaps you can go home earlier. I'm always the cynical one. I'm an ex-lawyer, much like, you. So I'm always a bit like, yeah, sure, that's going to happen. But is that what we mean by ROI? Like, can we count that quality of life? I think that's beautiful. And if we can do that, I mean, that is amazing. Does that qualify as ROI? Probably should. But whether it does to a lot of people, I don't know. But it's kind of cool.
The time capture question is a really interesting one right now, because obviously you see very smart companies focused on using AI in time and billing. And, Laurel is a great example. We've talked about Laurel before. And that metric seems to make tremendous sense. I can get you an extra 15 minutes, 30 minutes, hour for everyone at the firm times X, and all of a sudden it's a massive revenue generator. I completely get that. It's a very easy thing to understand. I can save you X amount of time at a base level that has, counterintuitive concerns about the business model. You can then use that time to provide even greater service and support. Amazing. Who wouldn't want that? We can enhance your quality of life. Again, amazing. Who wouldn't want that? The In practice, though, I think that's a core issue. And people have asked me in my conversations with law firm business leaders, so CFOs or COOs or executive directors or managing partners, others who are trying to figure out what does this look like in a universe going forward. You hear a lot about this, and I'm confident we will continue to talk about what the structural aspects of the business of law look like. And those have been the first areas where generative AI has kind of penetrated what's happening at a law firm. But it's a great conversation, and it does come up, but it's a fairly uncertain area at the moment. That that has a tool has saved me time as a metric. Well, what is actually the practical answer to that? And I think it's an interesting place that firms fall into, and they're trying to figure it out.
Wrestling with and I wrote it's so fascinating. Like this week I wrote about Legora and Deloitte partnering and I interviewed them. It's not out yet. Always give you the exclusive Irish. Give us the exclusive.
Well, the announcement that they partnered has been publicized. They're very good at that. So.
It's not an exclusive because it's already been public. But I spoke to them, and they're saying they're going to blow up the whole model. Like actually, I'm putting words in their mouth. They probably didn't say that, but like that change the whole way that corporate teams are operating, and everything's going to kind of turn on its head. And I think it probably will. I think you need. I think right now I think from speaking to lots of people like you do, there's still that the change piece is frustrating, right? So there's the belief, there's the investment, but the change is hard, and that's not getting necessarily any easier because it takes resource, it takes experience. There's a lot of people being hired. There's the people side of things, which sometimes we forget to talk about, not necessarily you and I, but just the industry. There's the people side of things, that actually delivering this stuff can be really hard. And those sorts of partnerships are super interesting because you're combining technology, good technology, with resource and experience in managed services and change. And I think that's kind of interesting to sort of help get over what is still really a bit of a hump for people. They've got the belief, they've got the money, sometimes they've got the ROI, they've got all this stuff, and then actually doing the do is really hard.
Well, there's gonna be a lot of testing, and if you don't mind, I'd love to just mention this because you mentioned Legora. So, well, I like them. I've met Max long before it was Legora, and he's been a visionary entrepreneur since I met him. But I because I host these breakfasts every other month, I I tried something this past breakfast, which was I serve on the board of trustees for an organization that empowers the homeless in New Jersey and in the New York area. And they are having a gala on September 24th. And so as a board member, I really wanted to make sure I could support it. And so I offered sponsorships to the breakfast, which gets a lot of visibility. It was standing room only. It was a good, really great event for our breakfast community. And I asked some companies if instead of giving me anything, they donated to the Apostles' House and either bought some tickets to the gala or made a donation. And we raised $6,000. And there were four companies, Dilla Trust, Harbor, Ligora, and Steno, who each contributed an equal amount. And I was just so honored that they felt like that was it was just a great way to do you and do good, right? Like to do a thing that we do anyway, and for the community to really support another community. And breakfast and food insecurity, like very consistent in terms of the connection. And I just those companies were immediate. Hey, would anybody? Yes, 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 yes. And it just a wonderful community that we have here in legal tech and legal services, and I'm proud to be part of it. I just wanted to share that because I just think it's so powerful. And believe me, $6,000 means a lot to people who are working to empower others in that way. So,
That's all.
great
Well done
companies there.
you. Well done you, and well done them. That is really awesome to
Yeah,
hear.
well done. Then I sent an email. They did the work, and I'm really proud of it. So let's. I feel like there's another topic in terms of we're going to get a bell next time,
I was
people.
about to say
Yeah,
Aria.
yeah.
Bing, bing, bing.
Yeah, we're gonna have to get a bell. David Hargan, the dynamic leader at Relativity, who I've been lucky to work with for many, many years, has this very funny. We've done this thing where he has like yes and no buttons. So if you agree or don't agree, and I still have them in my closet because he shipped them to me at one point. We did a session remotely during the pandemic instead of on stage, and it was very funny. It was like, do you agree? Yes, no, and everyone's sort of their buttons are bouncing. It's
So
very
you and I, in addition to our microphones that we don't really use because we forgot to, I forgot them at Ilticon, but in addition to the karaoke microphones, we need to get a yes, no, so a bell and a yes, no button.
We need to just have a whole bunch of.
A bunch
We
of
have
buttons.
to multimedia. We should have guests. We should have Cordy come on. We should have like a whole thing.
We get a
Uh,
dunking bucket as well. Like, yeah, anyone?
yeah, water. I can't believe you said that. That's ridiculous.
We can get all.
Who's listening? This is the point in our discussion where people are like, "I'm out of here. Log out. Change those. Go to better show." So anyway, I do think that one of the things that I have noticed, and I've mentioned this, you see this on LinkedIn all the time, is that the legal industry, I'm thinking about the virtual lunch community and all of these organizations supporting this initiative that I was trying to drive support for. The legal community has created so many incredible communities and pockets in-house law firms, paralegals, like it's really e-discovery project managers, they're regional. There's a New York group, there's the Detroit group, there's a London group. It's amazing to me how many communities, and I just wanted to encourage people to continue to do that. I think it's every single time I see things all the time, and there are always people that show up. I rarely, and maybe it's because who would post this, but I rarely see like someone in a room with one other person, like no one came. It's
Yeah.
it's really remarkable
Mm.
and it's inspiring. Like all of these things, I see people trying things. They're new to the industry. They've been doing it in the industry for 30 years. They're retired and doing something. They're changing the course of their careers, and people are interested in learning from other people. And I just think that wherever you are in whatever country, it's fascinating and great to see.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to, that's sort of like my public
I do
service
think
announcement.
I do think so. Are you always like say the nicest things, and then I come in and just have to ruin it all? But like that's kind of what we do here. But so like the big, I think you're so I want to agree with you, and I do agree with you, and I absolutely love this sector, and I love the sharing, and I've said it many times. We're so lucky, including I mentioned earlier with the G100, 200. But there is a pocket of the biggest firms that don't necessarily want to share. That's very professional. So for those of you who probably wiped out by my phone just went. So there's a pocket of, I think there is this doesn't take away from what you're saying. So there is and within the biggest firms, they do so much good as well, right? There's within the biggest firms, they have so much pro bono, and those communities are amazing. And I'm not to take away from that actually. So actually, I kind of maybe retract that I'm being horrible, but like I do think that there's in the biggest law firms, there's less sharing around the sort of stuff that gets shared amongst the sort of like slightly lower mid-tier stuff. Like there are pockets of sharing, and I love the community, but I feel like it's quite interesting, that the biggest firms, they're not sharing as much. And if it's important to notice, right? I think it's important at this moment in time to kind of make a note of that and just go, oh, hey, I'm not encouraging anyone to go down that route. And I believe that there's huge value, and we've talked about the ILTA community and and that knowledge sharing that you get. But if I would actually encourage the bigger firms, this is maybe where I'm going with this, I would encourage the bigger firms to continue sharing, like and continue being very much a part of the community and because of the huge value that everybody gets out of it. But yeah, no, I think you're right. I mean, there's some lovely groups. Yeah, it's
Well, I think it also depends where. For example, Ozban Amram
mm,
has an incredible community and skills, and they do a tremendous amount of sharing. I mean, they're very candid with each other in a way that doesn't compromise their firm's initiatives or anything, but he does speak to the largest firms on earth. He
yeah,
and shares that and provides it as a service in many ways. So you're right. It's not 100% transparency. However, you can really make important strategic decisions and initiatives based on some of that feedback, even if that feedback only goes halfway down the surface. You know what I mean? I do think that you don't
great.
need full transparency
Yeah.
in order to create, or at least to begin the conversation, the lower, the sort of the smaller you go in terms of form size.
Oz does an amazing job, and I would encourage people to go down that route. The G100 at ILTA, not so much. Like there was a visible, like, not wanting to overshare. That is fine, but actually, like you said, you can share without, you know, it becoming a competitive disadvantage, and actually, you can turn it into an advantage, I believe. But in the way that Oz controls that very well, they have sort of. I mean, the G100 at ILTA is a very controlled environment and sort of, it's supposed to be beneficial for the people within that room and they share only a certain amount. I mean, that's the same with O's, right? So it's very strategic and but amazingly valuable in terms of the learning that comes out of it.
And also, there are great where there are gaps. My point is that even where there are gaps, there are people who are filling those gaps. And so, my message, I hope, is just ask a few people if they'd like to get together and share ideas,
Yeah.
and the result may surprise you.
And also think about from a hiring perspective, like obviously the big firms, they're always going to have that name, right? But people are looking now to the firms that are the most innovative. And, there's all the awards, there's the FT Innovation Awards, which they do such an amazing job. People are looking for those firms who are sharing their kind of cutting edge innovations. And that's you've got to share in order to do that. And that's becoming something that, from a hiring perspective, the really top people want to join those firms. They're looking for not those sort of cookie cutter, oh yeah, we've done some stuff around knowledge. They're looking for people that are really doing some cutting edge stuff. So, and the big firms have got the resource and they've got the ability, and sharing that stuff is super important in terms of recruitment, I think.
And I actually am featuring Sarah Harbett as Shradley Ronan today on the virtual lunch
Mint.
during our series about Knowledge Reimagined. So with Atlas by Clear People. So yeah, I'm really trying to facilitate those conversations, and I feel lucky every time. I always say that even I graduated law school in 1997, and I used to come home and tell my wife, I was like, you wouldn't believe the conversation I had today. And all these years later, I'm like, wow, I can't believe how the conversation I had today. So I wish that for others. And Caroline Hill,
All right,
this
Kaplan.
is this is a highlight of my week or my every other week or the cadence that we're on, but it's wonderful to see you again. And I'm happy to have this conversation. I look forward to many more. I look forward to introducing the bell and the yes no
Yes.
buttons
Bing,
and the
bing.
bucket of water and just people can't even see it because we're not on video. We'll have to do video now. That'll be unfortunate for folks to see me in the morning, but I look forward to it. And
Look fabulous.
as always, wonderful conversation. Thank you.
Thanks, Ari.